Hello and welcome to Sports Scene Season 11, Episode 6. Today is April 1st, April Fool's Day of 2020, but we're not playing any jokes. We have some serious news to get to. Before we get into our news and discussion that we have every week, we have a new segment we're calling Quick Bits, the biggest news stories from this week. So here's Tyler Meyerly with that.
Hi, I'm Tyler Meyerly reporting remotely from Corona, California, giving you some of sports' biggest news from this week in these quick hits. The NCAA grants Division I spring athletes an extra year of eligibility. It does not apply to winter sports like basketball, though. While it is up to the teams to apply the eligibility waiver to each athlete, logistically, this new grant could pose a few more implications than benefits. USC basketball intends on keeping the momentum shifting forward, already locking in a few graduate transfers that would add to an already talented young roster. Chavez Goodwin, Taj Edey, and Isaiah White are the three grad transfers. Yesterday, NFL owners finally agreed to move to a new playoff format that would include 14 teams. This change adds one team per conference, and that means that only the number one seeds in the AFC and NFC will earn a postseason bye. The Pac-12 extends the suspension of organized team activities and also makes clarifications for virtual activities.
Cut that off a little bit early, unfortunately, but sorry about that. You guys get the gist of it. Today, I'm joined by Julia Adams back in California. Actually, all of you, or I'm sorry, no, Julia's in Montana. Lauren is in California, and Danielle's also in California. Guys, thanks for taking the time to be here. So we're going to move into our first discussion. The NCAA announced Monday after a Division I council vote that all spring athletes, not just seniors, will have another year of eligibility if they so choose to. They will have it regardless due to the coronavirus pandemic. Winter athletes who are unable to complete their seasons, that includes men's and women's basketball and men's and women's swim and dive for USC, will not have the same opportunity because they were able to finish regular season play. Before we get into our discussion, I want to toss to a quick interview we had with USC basketball senior forward Nick Rakozovic to his reaction on the matter. All right, so can you just kind of walk me through what was going through your head when you heard the decision that they're gonna give an extra year of eligibility to spring athletes if they want it, but not to winter athletes?
You know what? I kind of knew that my college career was over with. Right when they announced that they weren't going to be having where we weren't going to be having the NCAA tournament. I thought that it was just I did my 4 years, and I did I played 4 years at USC, whether it cut it short or whatever, and it's just I think for some people, if they wanted to come back, that'd be great. But for me, it wasn't I just didn't feel right about it. And, I did my time there, it's just and I would have loved to come back, and I would have loved to, played and done that. But for some reason, I don't know. I felt like, it was just kind of, you're supposed to play there for 4 years and just, kind of get that opportunity. So it's unfortunate that it happened like that. But, for me, it was just, as soon as I found out that there wasn't going to be an NCAA tournament, I looked at Jalen and I was like, wow, it's really over for us. So, I don't know. His plans might have been different, but, from my personal experience, what I felt like, I was like, man, it was done with me. So, people were asking me, if they were gonna make the rule about coming back or anything like that, would you have come back? And I just told them, I was like, no, I don't see myself doing that. For me, it's I'm on to the next step, already. So yeah, but it's unfortunate it had to go that way. But I wasn't really too I wasn't even really looking at it or trying to figure out whether if they were gonna have an extra year or not.
I mean, at least, it's a sad time for, I think, all sports fans, especially athletes, especially seniors like yourself. But I mean, you guys at least ended on a happy note with that
Yeah.
UCLA buzzer beater. I mean, do you kind of at least, have that to kind of sit on?
Absolutely. I always mess around because everybody always asks me that, I always mess around I wish I didn't go 2 for 18 or, whatever it was I went from the field that day, because maybe I could have, had remembered it a little bit better. But no, but that game was insane. I was like, man, whatever I went from the field or had 30 turnovers or whatever it was, we still won at the end of the day. And Jonas still hit that legendary shot, it's I remember I was just so hyped, and I got back up and I would just grab Jonah like this. I put him in a little headlock, and he looked at me and he goes, man, he was like, that's it, man. He goes, we're really legends. And I was like, damn, man. I was like, that's crazy. That's the last thing I remember, him telling me, saying that, and it really kind of got to me.
So you just heard from Jonah Matthews, a former senior forward of USC basketball, a veteran, spent 4 years on the team. Guys, I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think winter athletes deserve another year of eligibility with their spring counterparts?
I mean, I want to start off by saying that it's great that the NCAA made this decision for spring athletes. I know that so many were completely frustrated with their seasons being cut short. And it's awesome now that they have the opportunity to play another year, both seniors and non-seniors. But I think they really snubbed the winter athletes, because these winter athletes, some of them, yes, they finished their regular season play, but they didn't get to go on and finish their conference tournaments or even March Madness, looking at basketball, for example. And I think that's not fair. I think March Madness is a huge tournament, and being able to miss out on something like that is really not fair for those athletes, and they should have gotten the chance.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you, just because I think a sport like basketball was able to play it out, even though they did miss out at the very end. I understand that you can't really compare that to spring sports such as women's lacrosse at USC and men's tennis, where lacrosse was on a roll. They had just beaten Boston College for the first time in 6 years. They were really looking forward to finishing out their season, not even finishing out, they were just getting started. And for men's tennis, they were ranked #1 nationally. They have the #1 player in the nation on their team, and they were going to play against UCLA, and that is a huge match, obviously, for them. But then it got canceled, and then they heard that their season was going to be postponed and then suspended altogether. Like, those teams and those spring sports are the people who really got robbed. Those people didn't even get the chance to play at least a few games or matches.
But I think you're taking a look at USC here, because obviously, yes, we're a USC organization and we're looking at USC teams, but if you look at basketball, for example, like a Gonzaga or Virginia, maybe USC wouldn't have been making it to the championship or even the Final Four, but those teams were robbed of an NCAA championship, and also something that could have increased draft stock and just had repercussions like that on their playing ability in general. So I think it's not fair that, yes, maybe tennis at USC, if you look on a case-by-case basis, but if you look at all the schools within NCAA, not just at USC, it's not fair in general to cut off those seasons.
I mean, I'm gonna have to agree with Julia here. Like, all athletes deserve to be treated fair, and I think this should have been treated by a case-by-case basis. I mean, yeah, the USC basketball team wasn't probably not going to do anything much in March Madness, but they deserved the chance to play. So I think this situation is more complex than what people think, and I think, and again, every case should have been looked at.
There's the problem with that is the problem with, looping in a whole nother area of sports, right? You put it onto the winter athletes now, and you have, I don't know exactly how many, 5 or 6 more sports that you have to then deal with and address on a case-by-case basis. If everyone has to apply for that, that's a lot of time, money, and pressure on the NCAA. I understand why they did it. Most of the seasons were done for those winter sports. Obviously, it's a huge loss for basketball, but you get into so many other problems with that. Scholarships, recruiting. How do you make this manage? I mean, do you postpone this? Giving them another entire year, they had the entire regular season. The postseason was cut short, and they had their season. They didn't have the postseason, and I think they made the right decision. It's a horrible decision, as you heard Nick Rakocevic say, but I think it was the right decision. A decision had to be made, and they did the best with what they could do, and they gave it to the people that deserved it most.
But I still think case by case is important to look at in this situation, because if you're, again, looking at the USC lens, because out of reference, swim and dive, for example, a winter sport, they got, we saw Louise Hansen she won a bunch of awards, broke records. Maybe she could be like, you know what, I'm not going to take this opportunity to go for another year because I don't want that. But if you're someone who missed out, again, as a basketball player, on a March Madness tournament, on something that could have helped your draft stock, then I think you should have been given the right to at least get another year in that case. But again, it should have been addressed, as Daniel mentioned, on a case-by-case basis in talks with teams, coaches, and the player involved.
I mean, like, Julia is right. One size does not fit all. And again, this is a much more complicated situation than what some people are honestly thinking.
I understand what you're saying, and it's totally just a really difficult situation. It is unfair to basketball at the same time, but looping back to what Sam said, it's a lot of time and a lot of money, and you just realistically have to look at what's possible. And just missing out on like the end of the regular season versus losing your entire regular season, there's no parallel there, to me at least. And I think, as Sam said, they made a hard decision, and it was hard for sports like basketball, but at the same time, you can't just give everyone an extra year just because they missed out at the end of the year tournament, in my opinion.
Well, addressing both things that you said, time, first of all, right now, I feel like everyone has a lot of extra time right now, given there's no sports in general. So this could be a conversation that is happening right now between the winter athletes and the coaches and the teams. As for scholarships, a lot of these players that may have been returning may have been a real value for the team. So maybe they do want to have a scholarship with them, hold a scholarship spot for them still coming into another year. Again, that's a conversation to be held between the coach, the team, and the player. So I think it's by a case basis. If it's a player who, maybe they don't want to hold a scholarship for, the coach should be honest with that player about it. But I think everyone should have at least been given that equal chance.
I just think it just brings up so many what if scenarios. I mean, you address everything on a case by case basis, and let's say the majority of it does, and then you have players from every school, and don't forget that this is also extending to others. It's not just Division I, it's all of it, right? So there's a lot of athletes in this nation that are relying on that, especially with big recruiting classes. Like, you have the national spotlight of the basketball recruiting class. We'll get to USC's in a little bit. I want to talk about that today. But how do you deal with that? You can only have so many roster spots, and you promise this guys, and then what you're ending up doing is you already offered these guys scholarships, and then you have players that aren't scholarships that deserve to play, but they're not going to be able to because they have to give the spots to the guys that they're giving all the money to. So it's really interesting, and maybe they wouldn't have brought them back. Maybe the coaches would be like, hey, we can't bring you back, even though they want to come back. And then it's just like, well, then what do you do? So I agree, it maybe had to be a decision if you went that route, but I really don't think that was the right route. But I'm going to push on to this. This is a hard time for all athletes, but athletes are trying to find ways to stay in shape, stay in mid-season form as much as they can. USC football practice was cut short after just one practice. But here we talked to Jalen Hurts. Not Jalen Hurts. We talked to Jalen McKenzie, redshirt junior offensive tackle for USC yesterday, to hear what he's doing to stay in shape.
It didn't take you away from that. It just took all the tools that you were using away. But it didn't take the mindset that you got in your mind and like your why. Nothing can ever strip your why, like why you do it. You feel me? It could take away how you do it and what way you do it. You know what I'm saying? But the why, like, feel me? Everything I do is for my teammates at this point. Like, we're a team. We're trying to win championships. We're trying to be the best team that we can be. So no matter if we're together, if we're apart, you're still thinking about the team. You're still thinking about why I'm doing this. It's just for the team,
That was redshirt junior offensive tackle Jalen McKenzie there that you just heard from. I want to push on to basketball now. USC men's basketball is the #1 recruiting class for 2021 as of now. Recruits include Reese Dixon Waters from Playa del Rey, Malik Thomas from Laverne, and Harrison Horney from Mater Dei. Most of the talk is around Evan Mobley, brother of Isaiah Mobley on the team and son of Coach Mobley for USC. Mobley was a back-to-back California Gatorade Player of the Year and 2020 McDonald's All-American. So USC's coming off one of their best seasons in recent memory with a very strong recruiting class coming for both of the next 2 years. Do you guys think USC can become a basketball school? It's an age-old argument. USC is a football school. What do you guys think?
I think the Trojans could become a basketball program. I mean, a basketball school. And I think it's just not going to be. It's not going to be very easy. I think they have the school has to do two things. One, the program must win. And two, it all comes to marketing. I mean, throughout their long history, USC, from a marketing perspective, has always focused on football. I think they would have to shift some of their attention to basketball. So first, they would have to win, and college basketball being a coach's sport, they would need to, I don't think any infield in the long run is really cut for the job. So they would have to eventually get rid of him and hire like a John Calipari somehow.
Daniel, I'm going to interrupt you there, but I don't think it's about marketing or about talent. I think USC basketball can make it to the Final Four next year in the tournament and still not be a basketball school. What it comes down to for USC is tradition. If we look at some of USC football stats, we know they've produced 7 Heisman winners, 81 first team consensus All-Americans, 510 NFL draft picks. That history alone makes USC, no matter what, a football school. We just can't change that culture by USC basketball starting to be good in the next couple of years. It's just not going to happen.
I'm not saying like basketball will will ever overtake football. That's just not going to happen. All I'm saying is there's room. There's always room. The notion of a school being either a football school or basketball school is not necessarily true. Look at the University of Michigan. Maybe even look at Notre Dame. There's ample room for both football and basketball at those universities. And
But
by
I
the way,
wouldn't call Notre Dame a basketball school still whatsoever. I think they have they've had a decent basketball team, but they're a football school, and so is USC. We could have a really good basketball team, but I think there's only room to be a football school because that's when most of the finances come down to. That's what the tradition is for USC. That's it. Just overall, USC puts most of its focus, fans, donors, all of the above, put most of their focus on football. So USC is going to be a football school no matter what.
The way I see it is it's the
Julia.
prime opportunity right now. They're going to the USC football is kind of in the dumps, and fans are upset with it. They've had 2 rough years, and attendance has started to go down. I think it's going to get better. I'm not saying that they're not going to be good next year. I think bringing in an entirely new defensive coordinator staff is obviously, or defensive staff, will do a lot for the team. But then you have Alabama week 1. Let's say you get murdered in week 1, and then the first half of the season is rocky and USC's not doing good. Basketball starts up, and then people want something to root for. If winning fixes a lot, and the athletic department's really pushing basketball. Lauren, I'm sorry I cut you off, but what are you thinking about that?
No, you're good. Kind of going back to what Julie was saying about the history and like environment of USC. Like historically, USC has always been a football school. Not to mention the environment they've created, especially with the Coliseum. So unless USC basketball brought in a coach to change the entire dynamic, I don't think USC could become a basketball school in the near future. Even if, like you're saying, hypothetically, if they were wiped out by Alabama, I still think football would still be the main focus for years to come.
And to your point, Sam, yeah, like Lauren said,
how they perform.
If they're losing for the next couple of years, that's not going to take away the legacy that's been brought on by a player like Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart. The history of USC football is still, going to hold it. It's going to hold it forward.
I'm not saying they're going to take over football. I don't think anything's going to take over USC football. I mean,
basketball doesn't have to.
They don't have to. I'm saying they can be as big. Or, on that national spotlight where people say, you say USC football and you associate that with the Reggie Bush era, O.J. Simpson, all of these, huge talents that were sent to the NFL. I think that can happen with basketball too. I mean, look, you're coming off Kevin Porter Jr. Look what he's doing. You're going to send Big O, right? This is the time. They're bringing in all this talent, and recruits are kind of turning their heads and seeing all these top name recruits going to USC, and they're like, What's happening at USC? What are they selling? Why are they all going there? Maybe I should go there. And then that just, it ticket sales, TV rights, everything. It brings them into the national spotlight. I think they can be both. They'll by means never take over football.
Go ahead, Daniel.
I mean, like going back to Sam's point, especially in a place like Los Angeles, winning fixes a lot. And if USC, 5-7 years down the road, if they can get a big national head coach and they start winning, yes, people are gonna watch. But then again, basketball doesn't have to overtake football. All basketball has to really do is carve a niche into the university culture at USC. That's all it has to do.
But that's not the argument we're making. The argument is if USC can be a football school, yes, I think USC will be able to have a great basketball team and carve a niche and bring more broadcast rights and bring more fans, but that doesn't mean USC is going to become a basketball school. And that's the argument we're making here. We're not talking about if they can make a niche for basketball in the school. So I think that's
there's
what we're
always going to
at.
be that gap. There's always going to be that gap. No matter how great USC basketball is going to do, they're not going to be able to reach that. Like Sam, you were saying, could basketball get as big as USC football? No, I don't think if they were the top team, still there'd be a gap between those two teams. I think USC football, because of the history, because of the tradition, because of the environment, is always going to be the top sport at the university.
Lauren, you have a little bit of an interesting perspective as a former song girl. You were on the sidelines for football, but you weren't on the sidelines for basketball due to them taking it out and trying to push towards this more Laker format you said before, where they want the Trojan dance force there. I mean, what's the general feel of it, as a song girl, where you're like, football is the big thing you kind of build up for and basketball is just kind of in the shadows? Am I right by saying that?
Yeah, you are. It's not that basketball's in the shadows. It's just a completely different environment. Kind of how Julie was saying, being in the Coliseum is unlike anything else. Cheering at a football game, the student section knowing exactly what cheers are going to say, everyone dancing to the band songs is so different than being at the Galen Center. And I was a part of that team where there was a transition to the Trojan Dance Force, and Song Girls stepped out for one of the seasons. And you could just tell that basketball was being at the Galen Center and cheering for basketball is a different environment than cheering for football. So at the same time, while those environments are different, those sports are obviously different, but the root in the history of USC, that's why I think it will always be in USC football.
And I mean, I think we have a unique lens, obviously all of us being USC students. Is there a USC game day for basketball? No.
There was for that UCLA game. I got woken up at 7 in the morning with a tailgate outside my window. So it's coming. It is coming.
But it's different. It's different. It's not a day-long thing. There's not, again, as Lawrence mentions, there's not the traditions, the songs, the cheers, everything that comes along with a USC football game. That doesn't exist yet for basketball. Maybe it will in time, but USC respects its tradition in football so much. As I mentioned earlier too, when we were talking, if you go to Heritage Hall, it's like a shrine to USC football. So if they really wanted to make more of a niche for basketball, they would, it has to be a school-wide effort, even in the athletic department. That's
what the athletic department's doing. That's Brandon Sosna, man. He's on Twitter. He's building that legacy. You have to create that legacy first. I want to wrap up there. I want to push on from college basketball to the NBA. So we're now a couple weeks into the NBA being affected by coronavirus. Will the season return at all? What will they do? Latest news reporting that they might have a neutral site thing in Las Vegas, maybe. I don't know. I'm going to leave the question broad for you guys to kind of go in this. What should the NBA do when play resumes? I'm talking more on the sense of like scheduling. Are they going to have the regular season finish up? Are they going to go straight into the playoffs? Are they going to have extended playoffs? What do you guys think?
I think the NBA, we got to remember, these athletes haven't been in basketball. Well, they're in shape, but they haven't been in basketball shape for a little while. I think the playoffs mattered more than the regular season anyway, but I think the NBA should honestly have a shortened regular season for guys to get back in shape and then go into the playoffs and focus their attention right there.
I think it's an interesting thing that you bring up there, Daniel. I think you could do like scrimmages to kind of bring it back and maybe do finish the regular season, but in a sense where the games don't matter any. I don't know if you could do that, but I'm of the fan of just saying, here's the craziest idea. Why don't we just make it a big tournament? I don't know how many teams, but we got robbed of March Madness. Fans got robbed of March Madness. Give them a March Madness with pro basketball. I think that could be really cool. It's just a big bracket. I don't know. You probably have to do series down to the end, but maybe the first 2 rounds, it's just a 1-game elimination, and then you do series for the last couple. It could be interesting.
I mean, I think it's not crazy to say that they could just go straight into playoffs after this. Ultimately, we can't make predictions on the coronavirus. We don't know necessarily how long this is going to last for, and that's going to have a big effect on it for sure. But this is all hypotheticals here. So we're going based off the fact if they can come back by May, June-ish. But I think it would be interesting to see a season that just goes into the playoffs. I know it would definitely, no one will be ready for that, given they haven't been playing, but everyone's going to be in the same boat here. And that's what I've been saying is it's not like this coronavirus is targeting one player, not another. Everyone's in quarantine. So everyone's going to come back with the same practice time, and it's all going to be at home stuff. No one's training with their team. So I think everyone's going to be in the same boat.
I know there's a lot of discussion about going straight into playoffs, but just for me, I think for any team and any sport where you're on that team, training together is really important. So I think going straight into playoffs wouldn't benefit those teams because they lose all that practice time and that time together, which what you're saying, it does make sense that, none of them are training, none of them are with their team. But I think it's important to play those last weekends before the conference championships because I think it will have a direct relation to the way they perform in those games.
Dan, what are your thoughts? What do you want? What do you want to see? Give me the craziest thing you can possibly imagine.
Hot take, Dan.
Maybe make it a 15-game regular season, finish off the playoff seeding, get the players prepared for the playoffs, and then jump right into the playoffs, and then just finish off the season right there.
I think
But don't you guys think it'd kind of be interesting to see a playoffs that that comes right after all of this and just see how the players do? I think that would be
then you have players getting hurt. You don't have the NBA. You have the NBA second string because all the starters got injured because they came off of not being in basketball shape to getting on the court again and then pulling a hamstring or something.
I kind of
agree, but they are in shape. They're all working out. They're not going to not be in shape. Yes, they're not going to be used to playing a game, but I think the play will definitely be slower, and we'll see a lot a lot less LeBron James 40-point games.
No one wants to watch that. Why would they do that? No one wants to watch LeBron just dribble down the court nonchalantly.
I mean, you can't just throw players into a playoff format. I think that's why I said there should be a very shortened regular season just to get the players whipped into shape, and then dive in the playoffs, which most people, and at the end of the day, care for anyway. No one really cares that much for the 82-game regular season. People have been advocating for that to be shortened for years now.
Yeah, I want to push on to our final segment, our recurring segment that we have. Oops, I'm sorry. I have to fix a little of the graphics here real quick. But we're moving on to our segment, recurring segment called The Kitchen. We're serving up hot takes every week. Everyone's coming with a hot take about whatever it is in the sports world. Could be sports culture, professional, collegiate, high school, peewee, the little kids that go out there and just kind of kick the soccer ball around and all run around in a big group. Whatever it is within sports, you can have it. We're going to start with my hot take because I'm running the show and I make the decisions, and we'll let you guys go a little bit later. So we're going to start with my hot take, and today we're tangentially relating to sports, what I believe is sports, but what a lot of people don't. Esports. I'm saying esports are going to be as popular as traditional sports by 2025. I know pretty much all of you probably disagree with me, being the lone esports warrior of the sports desk at Annenberg Media. I'm going to let you guys let me feel the heat real quick.
You said as popular? Can you
as popular, that? Yes. As popular as traditional
popular.
Sports. As popular.
Okay. Sam, I think it's very logical to say that esports is going to grow in this time, particularly with the quarantine, talking about the NBA 2K starting on Friday, whatever. But to say it's going to be as popular as sports, I just think that's impossible. There's nothing that's going to take away from watching a player score a touchdown in real time or watching an NBA player score a dunk. Like, it's just that you will never see that like in video games. And I'm not a video game fan, period. I like my Mario Kart, but I'm not like a whatever COD, I don't know what people do these days, Fortnite. But like, I just think that's not even close to as impressive as the athletic skill that you see from athletes.
You know why you don't think it's that impressive? It's because you've never experienced it.
Okay,
and that's what I'm saying.
Fair.
That's what I'm saying this is going to do is the NBA 2K tournament. Just to clarify, the NBA is planning to host a NBA 2K tournament with its athletes, a 16-team tournament featuring athletes like Kevin Durant, so some big names that are actually in it. And what this is going to do is introduce people to the idea of watching esports in a format that they're familiar with. They know the rules of basketball. They may not know the rules of Overwatch, but by giving them this format, they're going to be more likely to move into that. Putting it on a platform like ESPN that they're used to accessing may help, may just prove that there's a market for esports on TV. I think this is going to be extremely important for esports. Daniel.
Agreed. But I want to hear from you guys. How is it going to be as popular? Like, I obviously, you guys know more about me than this, but how is it going to be as popular?
I think Sam. I think esports does have a future, but I think 2025. That's a bit too soon. You got to remember, esports is competing against the traditions of traditional sports, where it's a mom, father, and son thing. I mean, video games. I hate to say it, it peaks. It's like titles are fads. You don't know if Overwatch is going to be popular in 10 years. It transitions to other titles so quickly. So, and to be honest, there's something disconnecting seeing like Overwatch being played on a stage. It's just I hate to say this, it's just lights and just sounds to me.
You heard that siren. You heard the siren behind Daniel. That's the siren that Daniel's wrong. That's the wrong alarm going off right now. I disagree.
Daniel, you're wrong.
Daniel, completely disagree with you, as we disagree on basically everything. Lauren, I'll let you have the last word on this one before we move over to Juju.
I think it's an interesting hot take because of the time. I don't know if it'd be as prevalent if everyone wasn't locked in their house wondering what to watch about sports since nothing is going on. Is there room for growth? Definitely. Do I think more people will get interested and watch esports on TV? Definitely. Will it be as popular as regular sports? I don't think so.
That's what they said about UFC, and look where it is. That's what they said about UFC. I'm holding on to hope as a big esports fan. We're gonna move on to Juju's hot take. Juju, what do you got for us?
Okay, I got a hot take for you guys. So Sam's going to be mad at me for this one, but I think that the MLB needs to shorten their season in wake of the coronavirus. This is because the virus is obviously creating scheduling issues, And I think this is really a golden opportunity for baseball because, as we know, baseball is experiencing viewing issues. Attention spans are shortening, especially with the growth of technology, and urgency is more vital. So shortening seasons isn't that crazy of an idea. And baseball has 162 games in their season. And that's not really an ideal pace for this current audience. So I think that the MLB, again, needs to see this as a golden opportunity to shorten their season and get out of the way of football.
You're missing the whole point of the baseball season. Baseball is such a variable game. You need all those games. Everyone plays everyone in the league. It happens. You know who you get to September, October. You know who the best team is. You know who team 1 through 30 is, and there is pretty much no question about that. You don't have that with football.
But Sam, do you really need 162 games
yes.
to determine?
162 games. Sam.
Okay, 161. Fine. I'll meet you in the middle.
Do people follow that? I don't.
Yes.
When do people? Okay, but you are a big baseball fan. As someone, I enjoy baseball, and I have to say that I don't tune into most. I'm a Dodger fan. I don't tune into most of the regular season games. Postseason is a whole different story. Do we actually need, especially in this climate?
You don't have to watch every game. You don't have to dedicate every day to watching baseball. Whereas if you miss out one game of an NFL season, you missed so much. You're missing a 16th of the season. Compared to baseball, if you miss a couple of games, you're missing 162.
But why don't they use this as a trial period? Why don't they use this is the time coronavirus, seasons are up in the air right now. Why don't they use this as a trial period to see if a shorter game season, maybe 122 games works? They could go off of that and see based on viewership how it turns out. Again, it's just not formidable for our current society and viewing habits.
Yes, society is way too fast.
Optimistic lookout. And I think because of coronavirus, of course, it's a perfect opportunity, especially with fear of overlapping of seasons of different sports. But at the same time, I agree with you, but I just wonder if they're actually going to take that into consideration for those mega baseball fans like Sam who want to see the 162 games play out.
You know how much money is in that? They have 162 games that they can sell tickets to. That is so much money. Everyone's paying for these broadcasting deals, man, because they know there's an audience. There's so much money in this. And by shortening the season, you cut your revenue in half.
The biggest person affected by this is traditional baseball fans like you who are obsessed with the 162 games. That's the biggest. I'm sure baseball, like the commissioner, Rob Manfred, I'm sure that the players would be down for this. I am sure, especially in wake of coronavirus, the only person who I think, or only people are going to be those baseball traditional fans, because that's what the sport of baseball has been in our country, is rooted on traditionalism. And I'm sure they will have an extremely hard time cutting season, but like you. So I understand, but I think it's time to try it right now, especially in wake of the coronavirus.
Sam, I just want to make a point. Just because it's tradition doesn't necessarily mean it's good. I mean, some traditions age out, and 162 games in our fast-moving society today, that's just too much. I think if I had the choice, I would cut the season to 100 games, but that's never going to happen. So I mean, yeah, the point is the season has got to go down in a number of games.
All right, I want to push on to another hot take. I don't think we'll ever agree on. Julia, I don't think you and I will ever agree on baseball or esports. So we're gonna push on to something I feel like at least all of us. Actually, this is probably not going to be true. I feel like there's going to be a lot of tension around this one. Lauren, your hot take is very spicy this week. What do you have?
You guys know me. I love USC football. And here we are going into what could be the third year of the quarterback battle. I know JT Daniels' father said that he's not going to leave USC, but my hot take is he's anticipating with this first game with Alabama, Keaton, who we saw as a freshman quarterback get injured several times last season. He's anticipating him to get injured, and that's why JT's sticking around. But I think whether he gets a spot or not, if Keaton gets a spot, JT will leave. I don't think he'll be staying around USC, and I think just going back to a point of reference for people that are other quarterbacks like Matt Fink, his father said last year, Matt's leaving, Matt's not going to be at USC, Matt stayed. And then Jack Sears, another quarterback, said, I'm a Trojan for life, and where is he? So I think it all comes down to that reality of knowing that spot isn't theirs and isn't secured. And that's when they're like, all right, I need to make the best decision for me. And that's when I think JT will leave USC.
Are you going to get past the Trojan and Coliseum tattoo JT has on his leg?
You know, people can always change. Like, I've seen people, they like shape shift their tattoos into whatever they want it to be. I don't know what he's going to do with that, but
I don't think it's a
We'll
question that Keaton's gonna win it, but I think you have, if you're JT Daniels, you have to know that you're probably not gonna win that spot. Yes, you're a great guy. Yes, you're a great quarterback. You got injured, and Keaton Slovis played most of the season, everything but a half, basically. One half of a single game. Keaton Slovis is going into the season as a Heisman candidate. Like, you can't do that. You can't just put someone else in. Keaton had one of the greatest seasons you can ever have as a freshman quarterback. Like, hello.
No, I totally agree.
So if JT was gonna leave, he would leave
that.
already.
I think he's still gonna see JT help. JT is a competitor, and I think he is realistically really trying to earn back that spot. I'm sure, obviously, he's nothing he can do right now in spring ball. But I bet he wanted that opportunity in spring ball to be able to really compete. So I bet it's affecting him for sure. But I think, again, he's a competitor. He is smart. We can't forget his talent too. Gatorade Athlete of the Year in high school. He was compared to be by modern day coach to be the next Matt Barkley. So we can't forget that he is really good. But I think if he ends up losing this spot, he will probably look elsewhere.
At the end of the day, I know we're supposed to have a say on this hot take, but I personally I don't really know what to say, because at the end of the day, I don't really care anymore, because he's trash. He's trash.
Hot take.
I don't have a hot take, but here's a hot take.
He's trash. Like, why are we still talking about JT Daniels? Like, I just don't care anymore. Like, he has failed in every high pressure situation where Keaton has honestly excelled. I mean, like, if I'm JT, I'm thinking about staying, because I'd rather just shut up and just get my USC degree.
Jesus,
that's just not realistic to me. I just don't think, like, a quarterback like that, like Julia said, like Gatorade Player of the Year, 5-star recruit, all of a sudden he's going to sit there and get his degree. I don't know.
He's not that far out of high school. He played one season in his rookie season at USC.
The other thing is, JT's a competitor. He's a competitor, but the problem is he's never faced any adversity like this. This is we're gonna find out who JT Daniels really is right now. This is his really first form of adversity. He's kind of had everything kind of come to him, being a modern day quarterback. Everything kind of came easy to him. This is going to put pressure on him. It put pressure on him when they weren't winning. But you also have an entirely new offense. You have entirely new offense under Coach Graham Harrell. So, it's completely different. You have a different receiving core, basically. These guys performed so well last year. And
Sam,
I think this is going to test him for sure. I think what's going to really come out of this opportunity is it's going to be a real test for him. And maybe, again, like you said, we'll see a different sided JT. We'll see his competitive nature come out, and maybe he could be Keaton. We don't know. It's up to next season.
Julia, JT's going to be selling your car insurance in 2-3 years time. I'm sorry. Like there's no, like, why are we still talking about JT Daniels? Like there's no speculation.
You know why we're talking about JT Daniels. It's totally relevant. Like, you have to be realistic about it, because he was the quarterback.
He has the job.
To put him out. I wonder though, but you have to think about it. If he never got hurt, then maybe he would have played through the whole season. I think 100%, no doubt, Keaton's the guy. But I do think, I agree, maybe this is the time, I didn't even think about it like this before, for JT to compete. And maybe we'll see a different side of JT. I still think it's Keaton, but it will give JT an interesting opportunity. But it is 100% relevant. He's a great athlete, JT is in himself, and maybe he could play, but I don't think at USC.
All right, before you guys start throwing hands on TV right now, we're gonna push on to another hot take. You guys are at each other's throats, as Daniel is when he argues. Daniel's a fierce competitor. So with Daniel's fierce competitiveness, Daniel, give me your hot take.
I think there's too much money on the table. There's billions of dollars potentially being wasted. I think the NBA will start their season on May 19th or May 20th. That was the date when the conference finals was going to start. They're going to have a shortened regular season. They're going to take that summer months to get the spotlight on the league, and they're going to finish the season in August. There's just too much money on the table.
It's just too soon for me. It's just too soon. We don't know when this virus is going to go over, and just say hypothetically it is over in time, or at least on the decline, that you can do this. But it's going to take a long time. You're going to need a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks maybe, to get these guys back into shape. It takes a lot of work, and I think it's optimistic. I think they could play the end without fans in attendance, but at the same time, who wants that? Like, you want to go to the games, you want to experience a finals. I know this is an anomaly, and it's not the, it's a very unusual case, but like, I mean, what are we talking about here?
I think the thought of playing games without fans is honestly exciting because we've never seen it before. And plus, the league wants to end on a positive note. It hasn't been the nicest of sailings this season for the NBA. Kobe died. Now this, I think, and with LeBron's, let's face it, he's still the face of the league. So the NBA is desperate to end off a positive note. And what positive note could there be than the Lakers winning the championship with LeBron holding the trophy? I mean, like, there's no better way to end it. The league wants a positive note. So this is it.
I just think it's too soon to tell. I mean, if you guys listened to an interview with that Mark Cuban did recently with, I believe, CBS, he even said himself that he's unaware of the timeline. He's not sure. He definitely said he could see next season starting in December and then basketball ending the following summer. But as for this season, it's up to the virus and how, we can't make predictions on that right now. I think saying May is too soon. But as I kind of mentioned earlier, I think it would be exciting to see the NBA just go straight into the playoffs. But
I mean,
we don't even know when that's going to happen.
Look, Julia, these players have some of the best medical care in the world. And let's face it, a lot of these, most, if not all these players who had the virus are asymptomatic. They're going to be fine. It's just like, in theory, the NBA, like when the players and the staff, they're all cleared, the NBA should honestly just go. I mean, like, there's I
think that's a optimistic thing to say, because even if they do get better, it doesn't mean that somebody else related to the NBA or related to that staff aren't going to get infected. I think it's more about what happens with the world and what happens with the US recovering from this kind of disease. Going back to what you first said, I do think they should play out the regular season games, just because I think they'll lose all their practice time together. And I think that will have a direct impact on the way they play in those conference games, which, yes, it could be exciting to go straight to conference play, but I think it's important to play out the regular season. But again, at the same time, talking about May, I think is really optimistic. And again, we're really not going to know how things are going to play out until the world gets better, not just the NBA.
And the NBA doesn't want to jump on it too soon. We saw that the Olympics rescheduled 2020 for 2021 a year in advance. We don't even know if football could happen this season. It's just so much up in the air with this virus right now. We can't put a timeline on it. So I think we just have to take it on a week by week basis and really see how it plays out, just because, it's nothing we can really control right now.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be something that's interesting that we're going to have to wait and see on how this all goes for everything. It's nothing is certain, and it's a really interesting time right now. But I wanna wrap it up today. That's going to conclude Sports Scene Season 11, Episode 8 on April 1st of 2020. Guys, thank you for taking the time to be here. As always, you can find us on the web at uscannonburgmedia.com and on social at @AnnMediaSports. On Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, our page is Annenberg Media Sports. Give us a like. We'll see you next week. We're doing this every week until this gets better and we get back into our regular studio. Thanks for bearing with us. Please give us any comments or concerns, questions you want us to discuss on the show. That's going to wrap up Sports Scene for today. Guys, thank you again. We'll see you next week.